Okay, perfect. So we should be good. Do we want to start with just the readings and go through kind of like we have been for the last little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, the one that okay, I'm gonna start with this one because I thought about it and I really liked it. But the one from the nutshell when it was like getting motivation to do something, that was this week, right? Yeah. My brain, as soon as she said that, I was like, I'm pretty sure I needed this at the beginning of the semester. But I really like how she pointed out that even when you like, I think a lot of times when we think we're not, um, what's the word? When we think we're not, like awarding bad behavior, you still are when you're like on YouTube or watching something or doing something else outside of what you're supposed to do. That is an award behavior, and that you need to sit in the negative or in the boredom, um, and to motivate you, if that makes any sense. I thought that was really interesting and I liked it a lot.
Okay, no, sorry, I was just trying to gather like all my notes and stuff like that. But really, really did enjoy that one. I like, yeah, how she talked about like motivation comes when we like get dopamine hits. And so it was like, oh, like um you have to start with action. Like anytime you just like can't like wait for that motivation, but like you have to act. And then action leads to the reward, which is like a release of dopamine, which gives you motivation to do the action again in order to get the reward again, which motivates you. And it's just like that cycle. Which I thought was really powerful. And I'm like, okay, it starts with action. So now it's like, okay, when I'm not feeling motivated, I just need to get started. Like that is like the best thing to do. That is like, yeah. I thought that was like really cool. And just how it's like when you get less busy in life, like I forgot the example she used. I think it was like COVID or something. Yeah, yeah. Um, how during COVID people started losing motivation because it was like they were just stuck inside, like they couldn't go outside and hang out with friends. They couldn't like actually go to work. They weren't actually going to school, and it just like dropped motivation to do like anything and everything. Oh, or how it's like when she was talking about that circle of like action, reward, motivation. She's like negative self-talk interrupts that cycle. And so I thought that was like really, I don't know, I thought that was powerful.
I would agree with that because I think a lot of times, and like when she mentioned that, she's like, or even like the way that you phrase yourself to do something. So her example was the bathroom. She was like, I need to go clean the bathroom because I have guests coming and it's disgusting and like that sort of thing. And then she's like, that's negative. But if you reverse it and do the other side of things, it'd be like, I need to go clean the bathroom and I'm gonna really like afterwards, it's gonna feel so nice, it's gonna smell clean, my husband's gonna like it, I'm gonna enjoy it, like that sort of thing. I thought it was interesting how even like we think negative self-talk towards ourselves, but that negative self-talk also goes towards the action or towards what it is that we're the task at hand. And so you shouldn't be negative towards it, otherwise that's also going to disrupt the cycle. But I thought that was interesting that she's like, yeah, negative self-talk, but negative self-talk towards the task is not great.
Yeah. Um, sorry, now I don't know. Yeah, no, this is right. No, I like how you were like even towards that task. Because then she went on to say with like just start with one thing. Just start with something super small and like build from there.
whole show, my Kindle just like started dying, so now I can't do things. Um,
Okay. I'm taking notes too. We're
oh,
trying to.
perfect.
So,
Okay, then I won't worry about it this week, and I'll probably, if you can send me notes this week,
yeah,
that'd be
no,
great.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, I got it.
Trying to think what other in the readings my brain was excited for,
Um,
but I can't remember.
I mean, there was like the bluey one, like the Rug Island.
Yes, can you
And
explain what happened? Because my video decided that I wasn't allowed to
yeah,
watch it.
no, I like hate it when that happens. It was honestly like really cute. I'm trying to like, there was kind of like multiple little cute stories going on at like the same time. Um, I'm trying, but there is, let me actually just like look at my notes.
Eliza, were you able to
Oh,
watch the video, the Bluey episode? Were you able to watch it?
No, I was not. If I'm this week's been a little crazy, and I'm like, not like I've done some of the readings, but I haven't done all the readings, if that makes sense. But
no.
I
Gotcha.
was not unable to watch the
Freaking Nick.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Savannah, you're
Um,
our last line of
but it
defense.
like took them to, but it didn't take him to, but like they were like at like the park, like playing on like their rug. And like it was like an island as it like
or like make
described.
space for her to like run around, you know?
Yeah. And then it's like they went and the dad, I forgot his name, Bingo? No, I don't know. I know the mom was
Wait, what?
Chili. But
Um,
he
like
goes
that
to
was to
do
death.
something and they're like, no, like the crocodiles are
I
gonna
mean,
get
they
you. It's
have the
like an
bird.
island, you can't. And one thing that just like stood out to me with that is like I love like how the parents are so imaginative and creative with their kids. Like I love how it's like both of them, like if their kids are playing, it's not like, oh, go sit down, stop roughhousing, but they just get right up in there with them. And I love that. And I feel like it's just cool to like constantly watch it because it kind of reminds me of like when we were talking about like the uninhibited play a couple weeks ago and just how it's like so good to like let kids play. Kids are meant to play and just like not interrupting their play and like letting their imaginations like just like roll freely is so cool because then it would also like split to the scene of I don't know what dog this was. But it was just like they were just like laying in this rowboat out in the grass and they had like their stuffed animal and they were just pretending they were like trapped at sea. And I would just like go to the scene and they'd be like doing something and they'd be like, oh, we're so thirsty. Maybe I should like do whatever. And then it'd like switch scenes. And so it's like funny because like it was just like a little like side plot off like the main plot. um and then Bingo was like playing on the park and they found like this little like toy turtle. And so they go and play with the turtle and do all this and then they leave it under like this little covering thing because it looked like it was like starting to storm or like whatever. And then they're like, "Oh, it'll stay like safe there or whatnot." And then another little kid comes and it shows like him and his mom playing with the turtle. And it was just like it just brought them so much joy. And then they put it back under there. And then like next time Bingo went to the park, she was able to play with it again. And I don't know, I just thought it was cool to be able to see how it's like you can find things to share because it's like when you share stuff, like you're able to spread the joy more fully than trying to like keep it to yourself because you'll probably get like the same amount of joy or use out of it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's interesting. Because in one of my jigsaws, it was the like love your enemy, jigsaw sort of thing. In I think it was Jigsaw too. I don't remember, but it like reminds me. For some reason, my brain went here, where it's like in Bingo, I feel like they do a really good job of kind of showing that we might have like predetermined ideas about someone or a predetermined belief on how someone's gonna act. Um, and with that, it can affect us in our daily lives, and the way that we perceive things. And for some reason in my brain, I'm like like the parents in the show are just really good at just being like, yeah, this is something that was preconceived, but this isn't right, and this isn't like how you should move on about that. Um, and I love that you pointed out too, because like they're a part of their children's imagination and a part of the children's play, and not just letting the kids just be kids by themselves, but be kids in the family unit that they're in, and to build those relationships, which I think is really kind of important to build that relationship as a family, to play together as a family, as opposed to just the kids playing as kids. Um, I think that's important in life in general, because then you all grow together and you become better and you're just amazing that way. Eliza, did you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry. It's been a little chaotic trying to get on the road, but I like that. I think I remember watching the episode that you're referring to, Savannah, that we had to watch while babysitting one time. 'Cause it sounds really familiar, but no, I like that. There's no brain, but I think it, I think it goes really well with like what we were referring to before. But I feel like the little turtle almost created that like quote unquote motivation for them to start like using their imagination because then they're like, oh, we have this toy and and then it gives them that chance to um like make new friends or to just overall like have fun. But I feel like that's I mean I kind of noticed that with what I've been able to read though is like not all the time, but I feel like sometimes motivation can lead to belonging and vice versa. And I don't know, that's kind of what I got out of what we've said so far. But sorry, like I kind of thought it went away. So yeah.
No worries, you're all good. I feel like, yeah, like Savannah mentioned a little bit earlier, like this week's reading was a little bit, like it seemed smaller than usual
But
for
it
some
was just
reason.
like, I don't know, I feel like I just like had a hard time like figuring out what to do with it. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know how to like describe it. It was just like,
like
I
this
don't
week's
know.
reading, it was just like, it's not that it was smaller, but it was like the material itself either just
I
seemed,
wasn't like a huge, I mean, like I liked some of the stuff, but like it was just like, I don't know.
it was interesting. Um, but yeah, okay. Was there anything in anyone's jigsaws that they wanted to talk about for a little bit? Or in, because I think we've just talked about 12.1 readings, so 12.2, if there's anything in those readings. And we don't have to have this be a super long meeting as well. We can have it be a shorter
No, I think
meeting.
we can do like a 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Did you say you wanted to do 12.2?
Yeah, do we want to move on to 12.2 or the jigsaws?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. I'm gonna have to open up 12.2. Hold on. Please hold.
Oh, I guess like I can talk a little bit about like oh, sorry, there's like something on my nose. I lost it. Like my jigsaw in 12.1. Um, it was like this talk by Dallin H. Oaks and Clark G. Gilbert. Wait, I'm pretty sure Clark G. Gilbert's like the new apostle. Is that right? Yeah? Yeah, okay. I got two kind of confirmations now. Oh, that's kind of cool. It's like foreshadowing. This is back in May 2022. Um, uh, um, but it was just like stand fast with love and proclaiming truth is what it was called. And so it just kind of talked about like we're living in like perilous times where like truth can often be confused, which I feel like, I don't know, we can all kind of probably testify to having been experienced or like had somebody say something where it's like um truths are getting like mixed up and like twisted and like bent out of shape, and it's just, I don't know, like kind of sad to see a lot of that happen, or like people take it like out of context, or um what, and then how like evil is called good and good is called evil. um but it just kind of talked about like stand firm in your truth, and truth and love must go together, which reminded me of like, I forgot what scripture this is, but it's the one where it's like bridle your passions. There's that verse. Um, but then like the back half of that, the bottom part or the end half of like that verse, it talks about like boldness and overbearance. And I don't know, that was something I talked to like one of my companions a lot about like on my mission, and like I feel like even like in MLC, um, about how you can be bold with someone, like tell them like what's up, or like have like hard, difficult conversations like regarding truths, or regarding something they need to improve on or you need to improve on. Um, and they can take it out of a place of love and like be receptive to it. Until it doesn't really come from a place of love, and that's when it starts to become overbearing. And so like overbearance is boldness without love. And so that's just kind of what that article reminded me of, was that scripture. So that's our spiritual thought for the day. Does
I
anyone
love
want to
that.
say our opening prayer? No.
Let's start. Um, I want to add on to that because my mission president, that was like his favorite verse of all time. He'd use it all the time. And I found it, by the way. It's Alma 38:12. I'm just going to read it because I think it's important. It says, use boldness, but not overbearance, and also see that ye bridle all your passions, that ye may be filled with love. See that you refrain from idleness. I love that at the end of that verse it says refrain from idleness. And like that kind of goes along
Motivation.
with right, like right there. You can't just sit and just be like, I'm going to be motivated, because sometimes that doesn't work. And if let's be honest, majority of the times that doesn't actually work. Um, and I Another side thing, I don't know where all of this is coming from. This is my brain. Um, I was thinking about how uh, when you were talking about truth and how a lot of times people can like misinterpret truth. It's oftentimes in my religion class this semester we talked about it, that truth can be, people are now saying that like, oh, this is my truth, like this is my definition of this, which is not possible, unfortunately. I'm like, you can have an ideal or an idea that is yours, but truth is eternal and is determined by God. Um, anyways, that's kind of, I don't remember where I was going to go with that, but that was a thought that I had. And then the passions thing, the idleness. Eliza, you have a thought. I can see it in your eyes.
No, I totally agree. I going off of like the people going, this is my truth, and I feel like, okay, especially living in like a million different states, you get a different perspective on how a lot of people, especially members, see the church. And so living like outside of Utah, you see like just how like important the church is to them compared to the people in Utah. Not that like Utahns don't think that the church isn't like the best thing that's ever happened to them, but they do definitely have that mindset of, well, my truth is better than your truth, or my testimony is better than yours. They have like, I'm a holier than thou. And it was definitely like, I feel like bouncing off of that, like, it definitely is like a culture shock in general. So as a kid, I never like really noticed it. I like always thought people were joking that Utah was its own culture and its own like country. It was what it feels like. But I feel like that kind of plays into the topic of motivation and belonging because I feel like depending on where you are spiritually and where where you're from, it definitely plays a role into that because um like that truth is eternal and we all can have different takes. We all can have different ideas and we're not all the same. Like I could have faith in one thing and you could have faith in another. Like um it's like the word of wisdom, like how people who aren't members are like, why do we do this? This that's like the only example that comes off the top of my head. But um that plays a role into the motivation aspect because we need to grow our faith and our spirituality first. Oh, that's what I thought of it. And then eventually, as you grow in that faith, you feel the desire, you feel the need and the belonging, which then gives you that motivation to follow the commandments and to follow your covenants and stay and to slowly grow in truth and righteousness. And I feel like I need to read your talk, Savannah, but I need
Go
to read all
for
the
it.
jigsaws. I need to read them all. But um I but that's like my biggest takeaway so far is that we need to they all like have this one big role and I think you don't really recognize that until you do start the readings and it's I think that's like that's a really cool takeaway to have from just like one little devotional, one little talk.
No, it's like so cool. I feel like it's just those moments when you're like, the spirit has ascended. And you're like, oh, I'm learning. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah, it was fun. Oh, oh, that scared me. Um, I mean, I don't have any additional thoughts from 12.1.
I don't either.
Oh,
If I'm being
okay.
honest. I did the jigs. Mine was the jigsaw. Um, my brain, I decided to, like, the only one I can remember is the love your enemies, and it was interesting because he talked a lot about how. Okay, I guess I do have a thought. It's interesting because he talked about it's like this author who wrote a book. I'm pretty sure it's titled "Love Your Enemies," but mentions he's like, as Americans, we don't even like ourselves, and then he talks about how contempt can be built in a relationship without anyone knowing. And like little things, like he mentions, he's like, when you roll your eyes at like your partner or like you're sarcastic at your partner, sometimes that can build up that contempt. Not saying that if you're sarcastic, you're a contemptuous person. But kind of just pointing out that like we naturally just start or and this is where the natural man back in Moses and King Benjamin and all that comes from. But like when we have the natural man just build up in us that um in some form of way of like I am better or I maybe not I am better, but like why like how dare they think that way? Um that contention and that issue builds up. But once we start to see them and we're like, okay, I don't agree with you in this state. However, I can say that I understand XYZ in that situation. Um, and he points out politically, a lot of people disagree, which makes sense. But at the same time, you got to point out that you can recognize, hey, I don't agree with this person in the way that they're doing this. However, I do understand that they are someone of significant like they have a family and they have loved ones and they are a human being um and I can love that aspect of themselves. I don't You don't have to agree with a policy to agree with a person. And I think that's something in our world today that we have, for some reason we have to agree with a policy and a person and an individual, like all the things, when you really don't have to, and you can just love the person and disagree with the ideal, or disagree with the policy, which is really interesting. So I think that was, with that, my brain was just thinking loving your enemies is not loving, not initially loving a person's a policy or a person's ideal or ideas, but loving the person as, in essence, as a child of God, as a human being here on earth, as someone who has family, as someone who has friendships and relationships, um, loving them that way instead of thinking that you have to agree with them and belong with them in every aspect.
Um,
Anyways,
no, I feel like I've read a talk or heard a talk that was like so similar. Um, sorry, to like what you were saying. It was worded like slightly different. I think it was like talking about like more like the repentance process and sin and how it's like, if you have a family member and it's like, I have family members that have um like sinned and made mistakes and all that stuff, but it's like in those moments, and I think it was one of the recent talks about like inviting people whole like try to be like a rep try to like hold Christ light in you to like lead those back to you instead of like telling them they're wrong or like all that. Um, but it was like love the person, hate the sin. Like don't hate, your friend because you found out like they were out smoking on Friday night. Like, you know what? Like love your friend, hate the smoking, like hate the sin. And so it's like I feel like that still allows you to like be Christ-like towards them and show them that love and like let them know that like if they do want to come back, if they try to come back, that they will be supported, that they will be loved, that they will be brought in.
yeah, and okay, wait, I'm not gonna talk. Eliza, you go, because I don't want you to lose your thought.
No, you're good, you're good. No, I was gonna say I like that, Savannah, because I feel like love the love the person, hate the sin. And I think it's a really, it sounds easy when you say it out loud, but in reality I think it's a lot harder than it feels. Because you're like, oh, I can hate this person for doing this, but love them anyway. But I feel like in reality, I say I do that, and then I'm still judging. And so that was something that I think was like, oh, I was like, I can do that. And now I'm like, can I actually do that? Yes, it'll take time, but I can do that. But I like, and then I also like, you said Haley, where you're like, we, because I agree. I feel like we oftentimes feel like because someone else likes something, we have to like it. And I'm a people pleaser. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a very big people pleaser, and I try to do everything to just fit in with the crowd. I like often don't like what that person's doing, but I feel like I need to fit in. Um, Otherwise I feel like I'm being judged or that I'm doing something wrong. And so something that I think um, stuck out that while I was reading that stuck out to me was love and kindness are more powerful than anger. And and I like that little like tiny little phrase because it's true. I mean, I live with my sister and we often argue like all the time. But we don't hate each other. We might say that we do. But then it's like the classic sibling thing where you're like, depending on how bad the argument was, is like, oh, you wanna go get food? Yeah, I'm kind of hungry. I don't know about you. I can go get food. And then you're like little best friends again. Not all the time, but like most of the time. But I feel like it's the little things like that where yes, you can be mad and you can be frustrated, but as long as you're still loving that person anyway, life is almost, I don't want to say easier, but it feels a little bit more simple. And it feels like you can keep going and you can still keep doing your best to to follow Christ and to love one another and not constantly hate on everybody.
Yeah, I really like that because it also it reminds me for some reason, in this week in my religion class, um, we were talking about how people are in the family proclamation. It talks about like there's like a caveat in the end of like the sixth paragraph, I think, where it talks about how like a perfect family, basically saying a perfect family does not exist. Like there are extenuating circumstances in which someone like a perfect family is not going to be happen the way that we might think it might. Um, and so for some reason for this talking about belonging and that whole thing is just realizing that not one person is a perfect person. And so if you're gonna create a group or if you're gonna uh it like you should love one another like Jesus said, then you need to recognize that a person is not um an ideal or a belief or a policy or a label. Like they're not that, but they are human beings. And they're just like you and me, flesh and blood. Like that's who they are. They aren't um somebody. They aren't ideal or an idea that they might have that you disagree with. I think a lot of times people can get caught up in that and can decide that they are that label, and so then belonging into a group becomes difficult because now they have to find someone who fits that label with them. But recognizing labels don't, they shouldn't, in my opinion, they shouldn't hold power. You shouldn't have to have a label to fit into a group. Um, and that situation there. Anyways, that was my final thoughts. I think maybe I'm pretty sure.
Perfect. We can just go over 12.2 real quick and then like yeah. Um these are the crash course videos. Sorry, my paper won't stay down. Oh goodness, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Anyways, what is intelligence? I think is the first one. And I don't know, these ones were kind of this one he talked like a lot about like the different like I don't know if you'd call them like psychologists, but like the different people are like this is how you measure intelligence. This is how you measure intelligence. This is how you measure intelligence. Um and then he talked about like the G factor analysis, which is like are all intelligence is connected. Like if you're super book smart, that automatically means like you're street smart. And if you're super street smart, that automatically means you're somewhat book smart. Like it's hard, or it's like if you're super good at music and composing, then you're probably pretty good at math too, because you're super smart at this. Or it's like, oh, if you're super good at math, like you could probably pick music up pretty quick too. And how it's like all connected. Um, and then this is where it got kind of wild when it was like talking about like are smarts hereditary? Like, is it genetic how smart someone is? Like in their IQ level? And started talking about that and then brought in like the Nazis and how the Nazis like had this IQ test. And IQ tests like aren't really good at measuring people's intelligence. But like if they scored low enough, like they'd either like sterilize them or like kill them. And I was like, I did not know that, but that's yeah. I don't know he's having people go through IQ tests to try to make like the elite human race, but I don't know. I thought that was crazy. But then it just like gets to the point where it's like, you know what? Like, oh, I guess that's in the next one. Never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll just stop with Hitler and the Nazis. And if if intelligence is heritable enough, I think were kind of my points from that one.
Nice. We'll just stop with Hitler. Oh my gosh. Sorry, that was so
Stop,
funny to me.
stop with Hitler.
No, my okay, so my thoughts for this. It makes me think of the nature versus nurture debate, with intelligence and smarts there. And then also we had a reading earlier this semester that I can't remember what it was called about intelligence and measuring it. Um, and so I think a lot of times when psychologists and like just people try to put intelligence into a um like into a box, we always fail miserably. Like I don't for some reason, like watching the video and like talking about it for a little bit, my brain just thinks I'm like, there's nothing that's going to define what intelligence is. And I think while we keep trying to define it, there's some caveat where it's like, oh, but like what about this situation? So like street smarts versus book smart, like that sort of situation. Um, and so I think intelligence can't be put in a box. My humble opinion. Um, and with that, um, it's like you have to in my brain you have to just take advantage of like what do you value? Um, and is that like and with that value, do you value textbooks or do you value what you learn on the street? Like that sort of situation. Um, And then I think in some way you just gotta share that knowledge, and then the intelligence becomes everybody, and then we all are smart. But I don't think you can. I don't believe that intelligence can be put in a box. And watching the video just made me kind of rethink that and just be like, yeah, it's not a box definition in my brain.
No, I completely agree. Like, you really can't shove it into a couple concepts, and I think, yeah, it can just be shaped by so many different things. And I feel like the next one talked more about that, like how life experiences and environments do matter. And it's like maybe if some child has two very smart parents who are very into learning and striving to get as much education as possible, and like those are goals, and everybody's got different goals and aspirations in life, and some people's like might not necessarily be that, and that's totally fine, and some people's might, and that's totally fine. But it's like that's the environment that they grew up in, that's like their life experience, like they're probably more likely to go on and get a lot of schooling too. And so I feel like, yeah, the way you raise parenting, plays
Yeah,
a part
and
in it.
sorry, I'm popping in again. I also for okay, brains versus biases. For some reason, my brain I'm so sorry, guys. My brain's all over the place today. And I don't even know how all of this relates, but it does somehow because it's part of the reading. But like you were saying, Savannah, the way that you're raised is going to affect what you value too and what you deem as smart. Um, and I think also like so my brother's fiance, her brother has Down syndrome, and he's the funniest kid ever. It's super fun. Um, and so for some reason, my brain just thinks of like even like kids who are growing up, people are like, oh my gosh, they're so smart. And then you get to like adulthood, and then they're also like, oh my gosh, that person is really smart. Like they know a lot of textbook sort of deal. But it's like the kid's also really smart. The kid was just a kid though, and that in those circumstances, or they have these situations where they're really smart. I don't remember where I was going with this, but like the position you're at is going to adapt to how smart you are um in that situation. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember where else I was going with that. That's just yeah.
No, I totally get that. I
Um
totally get that.
yeah. Do you anyone else have any other thoughts? Eliza, do you have any thoughts about 12.2? Those readings? Otherwise we can do the paper of the week and the 90 and studies. go for it.
Sorry, we were discussing something real quick, but I do miss that. Um, going off of the readings. Oh my gosh, my notes don't like me to a day. But I going back to the measuring intelligence. I agree. I feel like people are intelligent in so many different ways. Oh, hello, Mimi. It's out of nowhere. But but because I mean you could have because especially working with the special education children that I work with, they're smart in so many different ways. I've met kids that are smart with more like they're more computer smart than book smart. And I've met kids that are more computer smart than or vice versa. Or you have people who are not going on the driver's seat, sorry. But um but I feel like it's hard when people are like, you're not smart because you don't know this. And I think it's really hard, especially with today where you're expected to know a lot more than you really are supposed to. Because I think there was a reading a few weeks ago where it talked about how after you learn something, you forget it within the first couple of like minutes to a couple hours. And so it's hard for people to measure intelligence that way because we don't really um retain a ton of information. We remember the little things. Because my sister can remember books better than I can, and I can remember like our childhood better than she can. And so we're all intelligent in a million different ways. And I think it's just a matter of we just need to get back on the right track of this is how, like, and oh, what am I trying to say? And that we can't really, and that we need to remind people that intelligence can't be measured and that we're all smart. It's just a matter of how you on what you feel smart in because we're all comfortable in something. Like I'm not comfortable with psychology, but I'm more comfortable with things like music.
Yeah.
So and so I think that that's my biggest takeaway from 12.2.
Yeah, I really do think it kind of comes down to what you value, determines kind of how smart, like where your smartness lies. If you value the streets, you're gonna value street smarts and that sort of thing. But cool, nice, good thoughts. Savannah, do you have any other final thoughts?
Nope.
Cool, great. Okay, so do we want to do real fast the 99 studies and the paper of the week? I haven't been able to look at the paper of the week, if I'm going to be completely honest. I was going to do that and then I didn't, so I haven't looked at it yet. But 99 studies, does anyone want to start off with those?
Um, oh, sorry. I my computer also might die in like 5 minutes. So,
Oh,
but
gotcha.
I'll be like super duper screaming quick.
Okay.
Okay, my 99 studies. Um, let's do the one about the end is near because the semester's almost over-ish. Um, and so this one kind of talked about how it's like many students like tend to like procrastinate. Um, you like and then like when the deadline and if they work towards like many students tend to procrastinate, and so that's why it's important for deadlines. Sorry, I don't know why I can't do that because it's like when you have a deadline, like their performance and efficiency is like improved because they know they have to have a certain quality and a certain like quantity of like paragraphs or like activities done by that deadline. And so it creates like motivation and improvement that way. And then like application for like real life is like I don't know, like anything, like it doesn't even need to be like school, it can be like work, it can be sports, it can be really anything. Like if we know there's like a deadline or like the end of something, like, oh no, like my, Costco card ends at the end of December, like November and December, you're gonna be going to Costco a lot more because that's when your Costco card expires. And if you're not gonna get one the next year, you know, um, that our behavior starts to accelerate in whatever way when we know a deadline's near. And this just reminded me of like the concept that like now is our time to prepare to meet God. I'm pretty sure that's in like Alma 38 too, like do not procrastinate the day of your repentance. So maybe that's just like our chapter today. But that just kind of reminded me of that. Like, we know that the Savior's coming. Like I was just listening to the talk, Confidence in God or Christ. It was President Nelson's last talk. Um, and he said, he's like, I feel the need to start telling you guys that it's time to prepare. And so that's just kind of what it reminded me of. But yep, that's my 99.
Nice. And you said your laptop's about to die, so we can just speed run this real fast. Okay, so mine is I decided to do one about the importance of failing as one of them. Mainly because I might be failing, but it's fine. I think it's really I love how it sorry, the main premise of it is that the scientists it like took look at that scientist, those who had near misses or like in essence failed like publishings. Um it talks about how later on they were more likely to have a hit published finding or a hit or were referenced more than other scientists. And so I think I thought like in this as a teacher, not as a teacher, as someone who's thinking about becoming a teacher and in my own schooling, recognizing that when you fail, it's not the end of the world, but that it can help you become successful later on down the line because you know what failure is, you've experienced it, um, you know you're not gonna die, but that you can move forward with it. And just kind of the same thing in life. Like if you're gonna fail, if you go in for a job interview, you fail the job interview, you know that next time when you do get a job, you've learned and you've grown upon that, but it really kind of takes that understanding that you gotta grow and you gotta fail to become successful. And then the gospel standards, it just makes me think of it's one of my favorite scriptures. It's in Matthew 22, I think, where it talks about how the Lord basically says, like, fall on me, get hurt, like get bruised, broken, all the things, fall on me, but that fall on me so that we can grow and we can become better and I can heal you, rather than just falling from a high place into the middle of nowhere and not knowing where to land, um, and not healing and not progressing. So it's kind of just that idea that you're gonna need to get some bruises, and it also makes me think of in Alma, not Alma 38, but Alma like 56, when it talks about the stripling warriors. No one was killed. However, there were people that were I don't doubt that there were people that were injured, and might have like passed out from like blood loss from the stripling warriors. And so you gotta fail. You gotta get some scratches, gotta get some bruises before you can succeed oftentimes. And it's better for you. Anyways, that was mine. Eliza, do you have your 99 study?
I do. I did the one about classroom decorations. That one just kind of talks about how um teachers with the classroom decorate like it was like a verse like teachers with them versus without decorated classrooms. Um, so I have the book pulled up so I can like quickly do it. But the main findings are like they were the teachers with who like had like really highly decorated like they were like visually like more like appealing. The students were like 20% more likely to be distracted by the decorations than by themselves or other students compared to the students who like compared to the classrooms that didn't have decorations.
Nice.
But But yeah, sorry. I have like
Oh,
brain fart.
okay.
Um, but and then the and so it was like it was kind of just like reminding teachers that like you can have a decorated classroom, but not to like make it like super like having like a million posters or getting too like excited when it comes to decorating because it's the kids will be more like, "Ooh, I want to read this sign for the 53rd time this year," or and vice versa because I mean obviously we want the students to be able to look around the room and they're mainly just looking at like having more like educational things. I've had teachers who've had book posters around and the kids almost did I feel like I almost like paid more attention in my English class when there were books because I was like, oh, I want to read that book. It looks interesting, and vice versa. And so the and so it's just kind of creating like a good learning environment overall. And so I feel like the life application could be to um, make life like make it visually appealing, like to create like a good learning environment for yourself in your like your bedroom. Like make it fun and make it your like make it personal. Um, so that way you can feel comfortable learning and relaxing in an environment where you're not overwhelmed or bored. And it's kind of the same with the gospel. Like, I mean, obviously, like there are certain parts or like aspects of the gospel that you learn, and they're like very much primary answers, and you're just like, oh, I have to learn about this again. Like I did that a lot in Relief Society. I'm learning about this again. Why? And so I think it's kind of reminding ourselves to like make the gospel a little bit more fun for you, so that when you find ways that you're not bored and you're constantly like, oh, I have to learn from this again, or I'm learning about this topic again. And that was my 99 studies.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm assuming Savannah's computer just died, and we just kind of came to the end. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna end. Nice.
Okay.
And if we have any thoughts
Yep.
for the paper of the week, just send it in the chat and we'll let it know.
Yeah.
But okay, cool. I'll go
Agreed.
ahead and get this posted. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.